Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Kizer Buddy. This is a fixed blade, a small EDC fixed blade. I did something that I don't normally do, and that's carry a small EDC fixed blade so that I could review it. I'll be honest with you guys, I typically don't look at stuff like this because it just doesn't require much. It's very small, it's very simple, right? Everything that you could want to know about it, not everything, but most of what you could want to know about it, you could gain by looking at it, in most cases. I think initially I judged this a little bit hard. And, you know, Kizer said, will you please review that one? And I said, there's not really a lot here. You know, there's not really a whole lot to say about it. But I like working with Kizer. They send awesome stuff. They make awesome stuff. You know, I was like, okay, you know, I'll take a closer look at this one and tell people what I think. And that's what's nice about Kizer is they don't try to tell me what to say. They just say, please review it, which is cool. So I'll admit, after carrying this, which was, you know, pretty brief, I carried this for about 3 days and used it for simple things. I actually enjoyed it. This is the size of fixed blade that if I'm going to carry a fixed blade, it's the size I prefer because I can shove the whole thing, including the sheath, in my pocket. Now, if you want to carry it, you know, a different way, like how you typically would a fixed blade, you can do that because it has the molly clip. But I'm weird. I'm a little awkward. I'm kind of a dork when it comes to fixed blades, and I just like to be able to put it in my pocket. And I was able to do that. So this actually did work. This is a lot more interesting than I had originally thought, mainly because of all the different options and the price tag, which was actually pretty fun to look into. This knife is in Kickstarter right now, and early bird specials will continue up to March 15th, and then in late March of this year, they will actually ship. So if you're watching this right now or close to the original date that I uploaded it, you can get in on that. And these are ridiculously inexpensive. There's also a ton of options. So I'll link the Kickstarter page down in the description so that you guys can check it out. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's up to you. Truthfully, the Kickstarter link is not an affiliate link. It just goes to the Kickstarter, but there are affiliate links down there. Anyways, thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's get through specs here super quick. This is a ridiculously simple object. It doesn't require much in the way of a review, but I do want to talk about all the different options. The overall length of this guy actually comes in under 6 inches. Now, it's substantially more wieldy than, like, you know, if I were to describe this to you and you weren't looking at it, you'd think that's a really small knife, you know. But to my surprise, it actually works pretty well. So the overall length is actually about 5.9 inches. The blade length, I'm going to say, is 3. Your cutting edge is about 2.75. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. It's a small fixed blade for sure. The cutting edge isn't that much different than the cutting edge on the 80. In fact, it's really close on the 80-20.5. There's just way less handle room. Let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. Alrighty. And then finally, let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It actually has exactly the same amount of cutting edge as the Spyderco Para 3. How's the action on this knife? I'm kidding. In this section, with it being a fixed blade, we can talk about in and out of the sheath, which actually is just exactly the way that I would want it. It doesn't require, I get really irritated when knives that, you know, people are going to be like, oh, it's tactical retention. You know, when you're doing, like when I'm doing backflips off of a building, trying to land on a dumpster so I can take out the Ninja Terrorist, I don't want my knife flying out of the sheath. Okay. But in reality, I want the thing to come out when I pull it. The retention feels fine, right? You pull and then you put it back in, click, it's fine. Does it rattle? Do you guys care? I don't know. I mean, how do I... it's weird reviewing something like this because I normally review fixed blades. It doesn't rattle. It feels fine, right? I just jammed the entire thing in my pocket, you know, but normally if I was going to dedicate to this, I'd probably take this part off of it. But everything works exactly the way that you would expect, right? You can leave it like this. You can turn it sideways. You put it on your belt, however you want to carry it. it seems to work just fine. I really like those sheaths that have the little, you know, the little cutout here that's like the shape of your thumb, so you can tuck that in there and push, but it doesn't have it, and it's fine. Everything feels right. Pull it out. You know, it feels the way that I'd want it to. It was very convenient. It was very straightforward. I don't have a lot to compare to because I don't typically carry knives like this, but it was fine. It did what I wanted it to do, and I didn't have to dedicate too much mental energy to it. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and do the carry profile. So obviously in the sheath, putting it in your pocket is going to take up a lot more room than a typical folding knife, but it was fine for me. I don't carry anything in my knife pocket outside of a knife. So while it did, you know, feel bulky, it would feel way less bulky if I didn't have this thing on it, right? Which I realized. This is typically going to be worn on the outside, you know, on your belt or whatever. So the actual object, like holding it in your hand, will do that up against something like the Spyderco Para 3. I feel like it's pretty typical thickness for a smaller fixed blade. There's nothing here that makes me think, oh my gosh, it's way too thin, or oh my gosh, it's way too thick. It feels pretty what I would expect. It reminds me a lot of the Essie Azula, and the Essie Azula actually has, to the best of my memory, has a thicker handle profile. And it's comfortable, but they've done such a good job making sure that this dual G10 area is almost radiused. It just feels comfortable, right? I mean, it feels exactly comfortable. I've only got a 3-finger grip on it. That's a personal preference thing. I would prefer to always have a 4-finger grip, but it is comfortable for the 3-finger grip that I have, right? So nothing feels thick. The handle doesn't feel thick. It also doesn't feel too thin, which is definitely a thing. I can't stand that when handle profiles are super duper thin and they end up just feeling sharp because they're so, you know, somebody tried to go overboard on the ultra compact thing. They made it too thin, right? No, it feels really good. So let's weigh it. What's the weight on this guy? Where's my scale is a better question. The materials, while I'm looking for my scale, on this particular one, there it is, Nitro V. But it's important that you know that you have a bunch of different options for blade steel. You have AEBL, which according to the little graph that Kizer put on that Kickstarter page, looks to be almost identical in performance to Nitro V. I didn't know that, but that's what it displays there. So you have AEBL and Nitro V for the less expensive steel options. For the more expensive steel options, you have S35VN and 3V. None of these options, at least for early bird specials, go over $100, and the entry price for the least expensive one is like $38 or $39, which is really, really good. Then there's anything and everything in between, different combinations of scale choices, which we'll go over. Actually, we can do that right now. You have PEI, or that's Ultem. You have acrylic, the clear, you know, fun stuff. You have G10, in this case it's a dual G10. You also have wood, you have micarta, you have fat carbon, and you have camo carbon, which will glow under UV lights, by the way. So there's, you know, anything and everything in between about $38. And I think the most expensive one I saw was $100 or $101, right? But pretty good, especially considering you can get some pretty cool materials combined with some nice blade steels. Once this actually drops and goes, you know, if they put it on their website, it'll be a little bit more. Probably won't be crazy, but I wish they would just keep these. I wish they would like not do like the whole early bird whatever and just keep the prices the same. I get it. You want to incentivize people to, you know, do the Kickstarter and get in on it early, right? But maybe like, you know, not so dramatic a difference between the Kickstarter price and the retail price, right? So as much as I understand it, it's like I wish you just made it that price, because that's going to be the most impressive thing about this is the price tag and the options, right? It's very, you know, it's small, compact, and works and does exactly what you'd expect it to do. So where the flash and where the importance is your, you know, different options to kind of personalize it and the value. So, but anyways, yeah, so there'll be a quite, I don't know, probably not a huge variation in weight, but a little bit depending on the scale material that you choose. We'll weigh it with the knife by itself. 2.4 ounces, no surprise there. And then I'll put it in the sheath and weigh it for you. 4.8 ounces. Nothing crazy. Pretty straightforward. If you're going to carry it like me, like a dork, and put it in your pocket, a little bit awkward, but it works. Jeans, sweatpants, whatever, walking around the house was fine. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. This is much like other fixed blades, other simple and correctly manufactured fixed blades, and it's just a couple of screws holding the handle. I like that it's got Chicago ends. It's really, truly just 2 screws. I hope that Kizer offers like the different scales to be sold individually, because I would assume they would all fit, right? So some people might want these scales, or like, you know, a separate set of wood scales or camo carbon or whatever, right? So I would hope that Kizer would have the sense to sell the scales individually, and not price them crazy, right? Price them reasonably, so that people can, you know, customize and switch this out, because it's going to be super simple. I mean, the nice thing about a fixed blade, a little fixed blade like this, is there's no maintenance really outside of sharpening. Once the screws are down, you got the scales you want, you just leave them, and that's it. You don't need to get underneath the scales and clean, because nothing is going to get in there, right? Now, this particular one has a kind of a Swiss cheese theme going on, and you will absolutely get gunk in the holes there. But I should point out that not all of the scales, in fact, none of the scales except for these in particular, have holes. So if you like holes, you're going to be dealing with stuff getting in your holes. If you have trypophobia or you don't want the holes there, probably more likely you just don't want the holes there, well, then these aren't going to be for you. So, but yeah, they do have just regular looking scales. You don't have to buy Swiss cheese. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness here real quick. Did I mention these were T8? They're T8. So that's good. I appreciate that. The blade stock thickness is coming in at 117 thousandths. So it's pretty good. Okay, we weighed it. We did all this stuff. Meat and potatoes time. So, another nice thing about EDCing a fixed blade, and the fixed blade master race folks, well, by the way, you guys are a real interesting crowd. You guys view the knife world, and I know that you guys don't believe that like this extreme of a person exists, but you have to remember, you have to imagine my perspective as a content creator who gets, let's say, millions and millions of views over the year, but more importantly, over 100,000 comments. So something that sounds like something that you've never seen before is something that you might not see, because you're not seeing all of the comments that come in under every video on every single part of my channel. And being the person who sees those, I can promise you that these people do exist. But these fixed blade master race people seem to view the knife world as a separation of 2 crowds: folding knife people and fixed blade people. Folding knife people don't own fixed blades and are therefore not knowledgeable of the superior nature of fixed blades. They also believe, for some reason, that access to fixed blades is something that is reserved for people with special knowledge or special position. This is I gained this insight from reading the ridiculous way that they leave comments. Most people who own folding knives own fixed blades. Most people know that fixed blades are stronger than folding knives. That is not a special observation and does not require specific skills in order to come to that conclusion. That's basic. Also, here, I've got one for you. Did you know water's wet? Also, fun fact, the sky is blue unless it's cloudy to the point where it covers the blue part of the sky, in which case it will be the color of the clouds. But anyways, one of the nice things about carrying and EDCing a fixed blade is there's absolutely no chance of the lock disengaging, because there is no lock. It's just one piece, right? Sounds like a silly thing to point out, right? Unless you're, part of the master race, cult that is the people who worship fixed blades and have to point out to everybody at every intersection, every juncture, that fixed blades are superior in terms of durability. Yes, good job. But it is true. You can use a fixed blade and you can be a little bit more rough with it in a lot of cases because it's not going to disengage. Now, you can still snap it, so a lot of people will use a fixed blade because they are truthfully more durable. People, I feel like, are much more prone to using fixed blades for tasks that are outside of the realm of normal for a blade. I mean, this is still, at the end of the day, it is a blade. It's a knife, so it should be used for cutting tasks. For some reason, people love to use fixed blades as pry bars or screwdrivers. Same thing that I say about pocket knives. You should use a screwdriver or a pry bar for stuff like that. Your fixed blade has one job, is to cut and to puncture. So if you're using it for abusive stuff like that, it cannot effectively do those jobs anymore. It's just a dull piece of metal that you have in your pocket that you use for a variety of tasks that it is now suboptimal for, like across the board. It's just a suboptimal thing that you're carrying around in your pocket. So use it for cutting tasks. But if you do get into a situation sometimes where you just have to use a knife, for a slightly abusive kind of cut pry, sometimes you've got like a strap or something you have to get in and you got to cut or pull, right? I can also see using a knife to get under a staple and a piece of wood and popping it out real quick without doing too much damage to your knife. With a fixed blade, there's no lock to worry about and there's no pivot to worry about. It's just trying to not apply so much force to the stock that you break it, which can happen if you are being abusive with it. But it was nice to just pull it out and I was like, yeah, this is a fixed blade. I can just go for it, It's kind of nice. Kind of feel empowered. Kind of want to join the cult. I think I see what these guys are talking about. This knife makes me superior to everyone who EDCs a folding knife. Yeah. I'm kidding. Okay. But anyways, it was great. Used it for simple stuff. It's not incredibly thin behind the edges. In fact, there's not really anything special going on with the blade. It's just a straightforward sort of drop point blade with a little swedge up top. I'll let you guys take a look at the plunge grind. I feel like that's gonna, if you're gonna dedicate to this, that plunge grind is gonna turn into a smile real quick and not be super duper fun to sharpen. But if you're gonna dedicate to using specifically this very inexpensive fixed blade over the course of multiple years, you probably won't care about that and you'll probably sharpen back to wherever is convenient for you. Or you'll obsess over it and it'll really bother you. I don't know, it just depends on what kind of person you are. There's the plunge grind there. But a nice tip, nice edge. It has, been used for simple stuff, just cutting cardboard and packages and stuff, whatever I needed to cut while I was carrying it. But it did a good job. And honestly, the lock-in was pretty nice. I mean, the jimping up here is good. I like it. Lock-in behind the blade is good. Never felt like I was going to slip up on the blade. Never felt like I was going to drop it. It's nice. I wish it was a little longer. I like to get a full 4-finger grip. It does come with this little lanyard thing, which you can kind of grab onto. I prefer not to have the lanyard and just have a longer handle. Like, just make the handle, like, a little longer, But it's fine. It was fine. It lends to it being a small object that's easy to carry. There's really nothing else to say here because there's nothing else to go over. We don't have to check centering or anything like that. Lock up, blade play, it's just not there. Straightforward, small, lightweight, compact EDC fixed blade. You have a bunch of different options for steel and handle material. I think this is pretty good. I don't think it's, oh my gosh, it's so much better than anything else in its direct competition path. I think there's a billion things out there that are very similar, but for what they decided to create here, I think they did a good job. I just wish that they would keep their early bird specials and just make that the price, right? But again, it's like, how do you incentivize for people to join the Kickstarter unless you give a specific reward, right? So if you're interested in this, I would get in on it during the Kickstarter because I think the Kickstarter prices starting at, something like this is $40 essentially for exactly this. I think that's fair. I think that's just fine, right? Those are fair prices. I think the retail prices are going to end up being a little bit high for how simple this object is. But if you pick this up during the Kickstarter, I think you'll enjoy it. Toss it in the little tray in your vehicle. That's, the area that I would keep it in. This isn't the type of object that I would want to EDC every day. I would want to EDC a folding knife, right? But this is the type of object that I would throw in like a shop junk drawer or my vehicle's tray or the console, right? Or just in an area where I feel like I might need a small blade in a pinch. I think this will do a good job, and it should essentially last forever as long as you don't abuse it. So yeah. For the life of me, I could not figure out who the designer was. It's not actually anywhere on the Kickstarter page or on Kizer's page. It's possible that this logo here represents an in-house design logo. It kind of looks like it says me. So is that Kizer saying it was them who designed it, or is this someone's initials? I don't know. But the whole idea behind it being called the Buddy is it's based off, a dog and the owner of the dog, or the buddy, right? I mean, there's a story on the Kickstarter page about that, and sure, yeah, okay. But I kept waiting to hear that this was a specific story about a specific person, and that person designed the knife, and it wasn't there. It was just a story about a person and their dog or their buddy. So if this was designed by somebody specifically, I would like to know, but I couldn't find that information. So maybe by the time you guys are seeing this, Kizer will have told me, and I'll be able to put it up on screen, in which case I'm talking for no reason right now. But if you didn't see the name, that means I never found it. So if Kizer wants to elaborate on that in the comments and say who designed it, that would be great. But truthfully, realistically, this is, just like I said, a pretty straightforward and fairly boring object, but they did a good job with it. And it was actually a pleasant experience to carry an EDC. It wasn't an insanely special experience, but it was pretty good. I think they've got some nice options. I think it's a good value in the Kickstarter, and I would generally recommend it for specifically those Kickstarter prices. So that's pretty much it. This will go in my Cheap Knives I Like playlist. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.